This idea that we can clean up Twitter and protect you from fake news and disinformation, it's so ridiculous. It's like fact-checking the graffiti on the bathroom wall of a dive bar. We called this number and we didn't have a good time. People always lie. That's what people do. Every age is the misinformation age. And whenever a new means of communication comes along, some reach right for the censor button. In 1858, the New York Times thought we couldn't handle the transatlantic telegraph. They said it was superficial and too fast for the truth. In 1487, the Pope issued an order to stop the misuse of the printing press for the distribution of pernicious writing. You know, fake news. Like how the earth is a ball. In 1938, radio was the hot medium of the day, and lots of people got plenty worked up about it, especially after Orson Welles presented what was obviously a fictitious drama about a Martian invasion of New Jersey, and thousands of people thought it was real and panicked. You cannot censor away that level of naivete. The Martians had the whole universe to invade, and they chose New Jersey?
Good morning. It's Monday, Medal of Honor Monday, January the 8th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have news shorts, patriotic shorts, motivation shorts, Bill Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and the Medal of Honor. All that and more when I get back.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I shouldn't change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Thank you. And now the news shorts.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's hospital stay raises questions about cabinet members disclosing medical information and transferring power. Here is what we know now. What are the rules for cabinet members notifying the White House about medical procedures and leave?
There are rules and laws regarding who has authority. And in that case, the Pentagon, Secretary Austin delegated that authority to his deputy when he was sick. Now, the custom is to inform your boss, just as you would in your job if you're sick, right? And he didn't do that. He didn't inform the President of the United States, his boss.
When do cabinet members need to appoint a person to serve in their place during a medical situation?
When they're incapacitated, say they're under anesthesia for surgery, for instance, unable to communicate. They're traveling somewhere where they don't have communications. They can delegate to a deputy the authorities that might be needed in case of an emergency.
Who is next in line to serve behind a cabinet member?
All the cabinet secretaries have deputies who are, they go through Senate confirmation. So they're spun up on this stuff. They're ready to take over when they need to.
We're following breaking news this afternoon. A new round of court records from a lawsuit related to Jeffrey Epstein just released. At least 17 new documents were unsealed this morning. That's on top of the hundreds that have been released since last week. The records are a part of a defamation lawsuit brought forth by Virginia Guffrey. She's an alleged sex trafficking victim of Epstein's. We'll have a closer look at the recent unsealed documents tonight on WPBF 25 News starting at 4.
New at noon.
Now in Georgia's election interference case tonight, former President Donald Trump is seeking to have it thrown out, arguing he's protected from prosecution under presidential immunity. Trump's lawyers have repeatedly said he was working in his official capacity as president when he allegedly undermined the 2020 election results and therefore has immunity. Trump's attorneys argue that the specific acts in Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis's indictment lie squarely within the outer perimeter of the president's official duties. The Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. will hear arguments tomorrow on this. Former President Trump is expected to attend.
Israel says it has wrapped up major combat in northern Gaza and dismantled the military infrastructure for Hamas there. Israeli forces now trading shots with militants across the border in Lebanon on the eve of another visit from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rallied his troops at the border, promising to do whatever it takes to restore Israel's security. As cross-border battles intensify, Secretary Blinken continues to push for diplomacy in the Middle East.
This is a conflict that could easily metastasize, causing even more insecurity and even more suffering.
3 months into the war, families of missing hostages left a long trail of empty shoes in Tel Aviv. More than 130 people, including Americans, are still believed to be held underground. Families and friends of missing hostages are still holding rallies and have rolled out social media campaigns calling for their release.
The Republican Party boss in Florida is out of a job tonight following allegations that he sexually assaulted a woman.
Leaders from across the state converged on the Capitol to vote Christian Ziegler out and pick his replacement.
Western News political reporter Greg Fox is live in studio. And Greg, the move comes just as lawmakers go back into session.
Well, depending on who you ask, this is either great timing to get this messy matter cleaned up or poor timing as Republicans are trying to show they're in control of state politics. The bottom line here is the head of the party is out and his replacement is working to rebuild trust among donors. The meeting of more than 200 Republican Party of Florida leaders resulted in 2 votes. First, to remove embattled party chair Christian Ziegler, who is facing a criminal investigation for allegedly raping a woman.
Let's hope this is the beginning of the end of this really sad journey we've all had to take in the last 3 months.
And a second vote to install Leon County GOP boss Evan Power as the new statewide chair.
No, I think it's a blip on the radar. I think we're going to be able to pick up today, fundraising-wise, and move the party forward. So I don't think it's...
Power recognizes that just as Republican Florida House and Senate members are hoping to retain seats and a supermajority in the legislature this year, the party must regain the trust of donors who may have been repelled by headlines of Ziegler's admitted prior sexual activities.
We can prove that we were bigger than one person. We moved on as fast and efficiently as we could, and now we're here in a new chapter with a new chairman.
GOP leadership previously voted in Orlando December 17th to censure Ziegler and cut his salary, leading to Monday's vote to remove him altogether. Democratic leadership wondered why it's taken this long.
This is a man that sexually assaulted a woman on camera, and it's taken this long. As a survivor of sexual assault myself, it should have happened that day.
Ziegler has denied raping his accuser October 2nd, instead showing Sarasota police cell phone video which he claims proves the sex was consensual. Ziegler's wife is Moms for Liberty co-founder and Sarasota County School Board member Bridget Ziegler, who also serves on the board that oversees Disney property. She told police she and her husband had a prior sexual encounter with his accuser. Christian Ziegler was not at today's vote in Tallahassee. He's said to be considering a wrongful termination lawsuit against the Republican Party of Florida. His attorney offered no comment today, but Ziegler has repeatedly denied the allegations against him. Michelle?
In the day's other headlines, a powerful winter storm walloped the country's midsection, with some states expecting a foot of snow. Blizzard warnings and other advisories were in effect across a swath of states from northeastern New Mexico to northern Michigan. This morning, people in eastern Colorado captured near whiteout conditions in their yards. And in Kansas, drivers faced heavy slush as they rushed to stock up on staples. In Iowa, the snow could be followed by sub-zero cold for next Monday's Republican presidential caucuses. In Ukraine, Russia fired its biggest barrage of hypersonic and cruise missiles yet as it stepped up a winter assault. More than 50 missiles and drones targeted a string of urban areas from the eastern front to the western parts of the country. In Kharkiv, rescuers pulled one man from his destroyed home as a layer of snow started to pile up on the rubble. The combined strikes killed at least 4 people across Ukraine and injured more than 30. Pope Francis called today for a worldwide ban on surrogate motherhood. It was part of his annual speech on global threats to peace and humanity. The pontiff spoke to diplomats and addressed the issue of surrogacy, calling it a threat to human dignity.
I deem deplorable the practice of so-called surrogate motherhood based on the exploitation of the mother's material needs. A child is always a gift and never the basis of a commercial contract. I hope for an effort by the international community to prohibit this practice.
The Pope has long opposed surrogacy, calling it, quote, uterus for rent. While surrogacy is common in the U.S., the practice is illegal in Italy and illegal or restricted in much of Europe. The first U.S. moon landing attempt in 50 years now appears doomed. Astrobotic Technologies' robotic lander successfully launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida before dawn today, but it quickly developed a critical fuel leak that could prevent any landing. The company says it's considering an alternative mission for the spacecraft. And on Wall Street, stocks made back most of last week's losses as interest rates on Treasury bonds eased. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 217 points to close at 37,683. The Nasdaq rose 319 points, more than 2%. The S&P 500 added 66 points. Still to come on the News Hour, Congress makes progress on a spending deal to avoid a government shutdown. President Biden makes a campaign stop at the South Carolina church targeted by a racist mass shooting back in 2015. Tamara Keith and Amy Walter analyze the presidential race 1 week before Iowa. And as the NCAA football championship kicks off, a look at the changing landscape of college sports.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
El Torito presents Brunch Auténtico. Create your own weekend brunch. Sweet, savory, tradicional.
The truth is under assault in America. As a consequence, so is our freedom, our democracy, our very country, because without the truth, there's no light. Without light, there's no path from this darkness.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Thank you. Look, folks, I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza. I'm using all that I can to do that. But I understand the passion.
Now pretty much all of southeast Louisiana at risk for severe storms on this weather alert day. Jim Sion tracking the latest on our radar and who's getting that rainfall right now.
Well, we're going to see a dose of rain this afternoon, more rain coming tonight, and then the cold front comes through probably about 1, 2, 3 a.m. That's when the storms could be the strongest, so obviously everyone needs to be prepared for bad weather. We're tracking the first of the rain on WDSU, First Warning Radar. WDSU, the only TV station that has its own live radar, and you can see that rain moving through the North Shore. Then there's more rain in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's zoom in and show you some showers that look like they're kind of exiting, at least the thunderstorms are exiting the North Shore, but here's another one that looks like it's going to move through Ponchatoula. That contains some brief heavy rain, actually just skirting Ponchatoula, if you will. But then another line of showers that's going to move into Ponchatoula and Hammond here in the next 20 to 25 minutes or so. And then out in the Gulf of Mexico, okay, there's some more active thunderstorm activity. Plaquemines Parish, looks like you're going to be seeing that rain in the next 15 to 20 to 25 minutes or so. There's going to be a lot of rain for us to track this afternoon, this evening, and overnight. Here are your winds, which we're also going to be watching because they've been increasing since this morning. Right now, the winds at about 10 to even 20 miles per hour. Areas that you see outlined here in the green, that's a coastal flood advisory that's in effect. Here's a flood watch that's in effect for our entire viewing area. The Tangipahoa River, flood warning for you. That just came over in the last 15 to 20 minutes or so. High wind warning in effect, and there you go. There's that flood warning that I said just came in about the last 15 minutes or so. Here's the high wind warning, areas that you see shaded in the darker brown, and then we have a storm warning for the waters. And why anybody would want to be out in the Gulf of Mexico in a boat, I have no idea, but there's a storm warning for you. All right, here's a look at your current conditions at Louis Armstrong International Airport. The winds have been increasing all morning. 63 degrees our current temperature. Winds right now from the east to southeast at 22 miles per hour, and they're going to get stronger. This is a big storm system.
Congress has announced a $1.59 trillion top-line spending deal. Well, the far right not happy with it. Steve Maher joins us now. What do you say to this spending limit, and does it avert a government shutdown?
Yeah, Stuart, good to be with you. Yeah, look, I'm in favor of this deal. I think Mike Johnson, the new speaker, did a good job here. Now, look, I'm not going to break out in hallelujah or something, but I think given the hand that the House Republicans have been dealt, where you can't even get 218 Republicans to agree on what day it is of the week, I thought that this was pretty smart. Look, it does have some modest cuts in spending, including a $20 billion reduction in the IRS funding that Joe Biden wanted. So that's a good thing. It does put a cap on spending, but spending is going to continue to go up. Let me be clear about this. But you just raised an important point, and one of the reasons I like this deal. I think a government shutdown would have been a disaster for the Republicans. You and I have been in this game a long time, Stuart. 9 out of the last 10 times we've had a government shutdown. Which party do you think gets blamed for it?
Yeah, Republican Party. Every time.
Republicans. So this averts that, and it keeps the focus in 2024 on the financial and fiscal calamity in this country today. In other words, if you're upset about the $6 trillion increase in spending under Biden, if you're upset about a $34 trillion national debt that is headed to $50 trillion under the Biden budget, you got to get rid of Joe Biden. It's that simple.
You've got a new op-ed out, and it's titled Blue State Dysphoria, Soak the Rich Policies Have Incited a Meltdown in Democrat-Run Areas. I believe you've got the number. So you tell us, how many people left Illinois, New York, and California in the last 10 years? I think you've got the absolute number, right? What is it?
Yeah, it's close to 5 million people. If you add New Jersey, which is the fourth big blue state, it's about 5 million people. This is one of the biggest mass migrations in American history. You know, if you look at, for example, the states that gained the most population over the last 10 years, you're talking about obviously Florida, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. Those states, the Southeast now has a larger GDP, total combined economic output, than the Northeast. That's the first time that's ever happened in American history. So what's happening is not just a migration of people to these low-tax states, but also a migration of business activity, capital investment. Look, the South is where it's at right now. And what is the response by the blue states? They keep raising their tax rates. California just adopted a new tax increase. Their top rate, you know what it is today, Stuart, in California?
Tell me.
14.4%. You can move to Florida and Texas and pay zero. This is our no-brainer.
But Steve, is it just taxes, or is it people wanting to move to a good business climate, a climate of expansion?
Yeah, good point, Stuart. So, yeah, it's the latter. It's not just taxes. For example, these states that are growing rapidly are right-to-work states. They basically say, look, they have unions, but you have, as a worker, the opportunity to join the union or not join the union. You can't be forced to. They have lighter regulation, better policies across the board, a pro-business atmosphere. And the point of my article today is the blue states don't get it, Stuart. They keep raising their tax rates. My home state of Illinois. You look at what's happening in Maryland and a bunch of other blue states. They continue to kind of soak the rich, and all that does is lead more people to leave. They're taking their jobs with them. I wish these blue states would get their act together and stop avoiding reality, which is taxes do matter.
And that was the news shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the military shorts.
She joined the Office of Strategic Services because she was too tall for the Women's Army Corps and the U.S. Navy's waves. She worked for legendary Wild Bill Donovan as a top-secret researcher in Washington, D.C., before being shipped out to the Pacific for a unique assignment. Her name was Julia Child, and when she was asked to solve the problem of underwater explosives being set off by curious sharks, her solution was to cook various concoctions as a shark repellent. It worked so well that it was also used to coat life jackets for sailors. Julia also served as chief of the OSS registry, giving her top security clearances and knowledge of every incoming and outgoing message that passed through her office. It was there that she also met husband Paul, and when he was transferred to France after the war, it was Paul who encouraged her to attend culinary school. 20 best-selling books and an award-winning TV show later, Julia always considered the shark repellent her first culinary contribution to the world.
Countries are desperate to get their hands on France's Dassault Rafale, seen as one of the best fighter jets on the market, but many deals can't be completed due to problems. What exactly makes this fighter jet so great? The Rafale can fly to an altitude of 60,000 feet in under a minute, a speed that's a little slower than the F-22. Its unique ability to lock onto and engage 40 targets at once sets it apart from other fighters. However, despite it having a light weight of less than 10,000 kilograms, this aircraft has an insane load capacity of 10 tons. It can even fly on long-range missions that last over 10 hours. A huge advantage of the Rafale over other jets is its capability to fly over the Himalayas, even in the harshest cold weather conditions, which might be useful in the future. But the jet is not what it looks like. Despite its sleek and compact design, the Rafale has a giant fuel capacity of around 17,000 liters. It has features like next-level helmet-mounted displays and infrared search and tracking systems.
Throughout my life, I'd pretty much been arrested pretty much every year for something. And it was no different in the teens. That's like, I got arrested in SQT. I come back from Yemen, get arrested again downtown. Drunk at Publix, being drunk and stupid. And so the team gave me vacation to go to jail. So I took vacation and I did 3 weeks in Ada County jail as an active duty. The bailiffs wouldn't put me in handcuffs. I didn't even wait. They said, "Do you want us to call anybody?" I said, "Call SEAL Team 7." The interview process in the selection Legion is the most important. Every interview. That's like, why is the Navy SEAL? They don't want issues with the United States government. And so I explained, I could lean into the truth. I'm like, ruined my whole life and I need a second chance. Now I'm doing shoot, move, communicate with these guys who've never been in the military. I'm doing halos and shit. It was like,
a baptism in humility.
She was a budding model and actress when the United States entered World War II. Her career was just beginning to take off when she put it on hold to assist in the war effort. Her name was Betty White, and a month before her 20th birthday, she went to work with the American Women's Voluntary Services, which provided wartime services traditionally filled by men. Betty was made a truck driver, where she ferried supplies between various Army barracks throughout California, often working 16-hour days. She would drive Army trucks for the duration of the war before resuming her acting career. Betty would go on to become a staple on TV for the next 7 decades and remained as popular as ever right up until the time of her passing on New Year's Eve in 2021. At the time of her death, an Army spokesman said, "Not only was Betty White an amazing actress, she also served during World War II as a member of the AWVS. She was a true legend on and off the screen."
Why is it impossible to take down an A-10 Warthog? Let me explain. The A-10 is one of the U.S. Air Force's greatest ever aircraft. For over 50 years, this aircraft has shown how it can survive almost anything. Made to fly at low altitudes and endure relentless amounts of fire, the Warthog's unbeaten durability and agility make it nearly unstoppable. Its strong airframe allows the A-10 to withstand deadly blows and remain in the air. What's crazy is that this beast of a machine can continue flying, even with only one engine operational or half a wing intact, covered in titanium armor and fortified by a giant bulletproof canopy to protect its pilot. Whoever is flying can fly with confidence. But that's not all. Its structure is like no other aircraft. There are no wheels on its wings, giving the A-10 Warthog the ability to perform a belly landing in the event of the landing gear failing. Even its engines are resilient, crafted to endure constant 23mm cannon fire from ground forces.
So, to be a boss in the mob, what do you think are the 2 qualities that you gotta have?
You want to survive as a boss? Right. Number 1, be generous to the people under you. Don't be greedy.
What boss is mostly greedy?
Well, that's the one thing Castellano had against him. People knew him as being greedy.
He was greedy.
I heard that a lot, yeah. And I had a personal incident with him where he was rough in that way. And let you guys know that whatever you ask them to do, they know you can do it on your own. I'll give you an example. Percival, he was a tough guy, no question. He would never ask you to do anything that he wasn't even better than you at doing. So if Percival was telling you, I'm sorry to say, go kill this guy, everybody knew that Percival would be the first one there if he had to be. But he's the boss. He didn't have to do that. So people got to respect you and know you in that way that, hey, this is a capable guy. Like, the things you heard, again, I keep bringing up Castellano because he's the obvious. He's a businessman. What does he know? He doesn't know the street. We even see that in the movie, in the Gotti movie. He doesn't know the street. So guys didn't respect him in that way. They didn't respect him. Plus, he was greedy. That's 2 things he had going against him. And I think Gotti had that in his head, too.
Sometimes real life is stranger than fiction. He was born in Maine and moved to Missouri before his 14th birthday. It was the summer of 1849. His name was Otis Burton, and before he turned 15, he had fallen in love with his neighbor, Susan Mary Payne. Susan was from a prominent family, and the two are inseparable until her dad moves her family to Oklahoma, and they lose touch. When war breaks out, Burton enlists in the 25th Missouri Regiment and serves with distinction. He is wounded twice but manages to survive. In 1867, while running supplies to the west, he's ambushed and captured by the Comanche, where he's made to do hard labor. One day, he steals a horse and escapes. He sees a lone house on the horizon and desperately seeks refuge. He knocks on the door, and to his amazement, it's answered by his long-lost love, Susan Mary Payne. She's a war widow living alone. They rekindle their romance and remain together for the rest of their lives.
There are 2 things that almost nobody knows about the SR-71 Blackbird. After long, intense flights, strange black marks would appear on the Blackbird's windshield. These specks were analyzed and turned out to be traces of soil and insects. But how did these get to an altitude of 70,000 feet when the highest flying birds don't go above 40,000 feet? The truth is that these were the victims of nuclear tests in China and Russia. And because these explosions had so much power, millions of insects were caught in the shockwaves and launched into the sky, then carried around the world by jet streams. Their remains got as high as the Blackbird and left marks on the windshield. But that's not all. Since the Blackbird is sent on missions across the world's most hostile environments, the U.S. Air Force equipped its pilots with a survival kit. Even though no SR-71 was ever shot down, this kit had some strange items. One of the main things inside was an aluminum gun, made purposely from aluminum to make sure it was lightweight. There was also a life raft, radio, and survival gear. When U.S. Air Force pilot Major Grant Thompson took off from an RAF base on July 13, 2021, he had no idea his plane was damaged. To him, the takeoff seemed completely normal, and he was prepared to simply continue his flight. But if he had, there's no telling what could have happened and whether or not he would have survived. That's because just after the seemingly routine takeoff, an aviation enthusiast who had been snapping photos from just outside the base noticed sparks coming off the back of the plane. Realizing something was very wrong and that the pilot's life was in danger, the man Googled the base and after getting through to the switchboard, alerted flight operations that there was a serious problem. The tower then passed the warning on to the pilot, whose wingman quickly confirmed that one of the engines was indeed damaged. Although neither pilot nor wingman had noticed anything wrong, this quick-thinking photographer at the right place at the right time was able to save the pilot from a potentially deadly situation.
Thomas Paine is a Delta Force soldier who has freed over 70 hostages. The civilians were captives of IS and were held in the town of Hawija in northern Iraq. When strong intel indicated that they would soon be executed, special forces attacked that same night. First, they tried to blast their way through the wall, which alerted the enemy. After Paine made it inside, he took out resistance in the first building and freed 38 hostages. He then ran through enemy gunfire to join his comrades, who were engaged in combat with entrenched terrorists. The building had begun to burn, yet Paine climbed to the roof and engaged the enemy from above. Knowing that the hostages were running out of time, he headed for the main entrance. Regardless of the many enemies and blazing fire, he was the first man to storm the building. After freeing the hostages, Paine kept returning to the Inferno to make sure that absolutely no one was left behind. For these courageous actions, he was awarded the Medal of Honor.
And that was the military shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the motivational shorts.
Every time I sit in an interview, it's, oh, why are you here? You have too much money, you're too successful, you've done it all, blah, blah, blah. You know, in the last fight, I kind of bought into that. You know, I was in the press conference and a guy was reading out a quote of mine from many years ago where I was like, you know, talking about, I can't wait, I'm gonna put my mother in a mansion, my girlfriend's gonna have a car for every day of the week. And, you know, I was feeding into that. Wow, I did all this. You know, I'm where I am. I'm grateful. I'm proud of where I am and what I've achieved. But there's a lot more left in me. I'm still very young. I'm very fresh in the game. And I'm a dangerous man, Steve. And I'm the most dangerous of them all. You know what I mean? I have 19 knockouts in my mixed martial arts career. Saturday night, I will get my 20th. It'll be my 12th UFC main event. Only 22 years of age. Fresh as anything. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to prove how dangerous I am, because trust me, in the mindset I'm in, I'm really, really dangerous. This man is not, it's not going to be pretty what's going to happen to this man in here.
You meet a family that is wealthy. Somewhere back in their lineage generationally, they weren't. And then something happens. The one shows up. In every family, there's the one. And that one changes that family forever. In my family, I'm the one. We don't think like we used to think. My nieces and nephews are positive, forward-thinking, caring, good people with dreams. I wasn't raised like that. I'm the one. I'm the one who made the calls late at night. I'm the one who drove hours and hours for people to say no. I'm the one who dealt with the heat. I'm the one who typed all the emails. I'm the one who returned all the messages. I'm the one that dealt with all the stress and the strife and the cancellations and the back-talking and the people who didn't keep their word to me and the difficult times. I'm the one who lost sleep at night. I'm the one who got up early. I'm the one who carried the emotional burden of winning, just like you are. You're the one.
Forgiveness does not change the person that hurt you. Are you listening to me? Forgiveness doesn't change that person. Forgiveness changes you. Guess what forgiveness does not do? Forgiveness does not mean you forget. One of the most crazy theories is that you forgive and forget. You don't forget, but you do have the opportunity to forgive every time you remember. And there's some things in my life and there's some people in my life that every time I remember, I have to forgive them again. Forgiveness is not a one-time fix-all. Forgiveness is a daily sacrifice that I have to implement so that I can receive what it is that God has for me. If I don't put into practice forgiveness for those that have hurt me and those that have impacted me in a negative way, then I hold myself hostage to a prison that God never intended for me to stay put in.
Did you know that only 1% of people are naturally, extraordinarily gifted at something? Less than 1%, actually. Think genius, think savant. Do you know what that means for us, the other 99+% of people? If we're going to do anything great in this life, it is going to require discipline. That's the truth. It is going to require you pushing through the discomfort and embracing the grind.
If you're an agreeable person, and that means you're fundamentally compassionate and caring, you don't like conflict, you like to put other people at ease, you're likely to go along to get along. Now, the problem with being a caring person is that, of that sort, an agreeable person, is that you don't like conflict, you're going to always assume the best of others, and it's going to be difficult for you to say no when you need to say no. And what no means, by the way, just so that everyone who is listening is clear, no, when you say it to someone, means if you don't stop doing that, something you do not like will happen to you with 100% certainty. That's what no means if you dare utter it. It's useful to develop that side of your character, too, that part that can bite back when bitten. Not more than necessary, but certainly not less than necessary.
I'm telling you right now, what I'm finna tell you, if you apply it right now, can change your existence. Because everybody I know want to be happy, everybody I know want to be successful. If you don't want them two things, there's something wrong with you anyway. So now here, there is a scripture that I'm going to give you. It's a very small scripture. It's very short. I don't even know where it is in the Bible. Somebody probably know it if I say it, but I'm going to give it to you. This scripture changed my life. You have not because you ask not. You have any idea how major those words are for you? Most people don't have the life of their dreams because you don't ask God for the life of your dreams. You've been trying to figure it out and handle it yourself. Well, how that's working out for you? You know how hard that is to do, man? Because stop telling your visions to other people because they're not going to see it. Why you think you keep imagining opening a business? Why do you keep imagining buying a house? Why do you keep imagining driving a really nice car? Why do you keep imagining getting rich one day? Why do you keep imagining that? Because God is talking to you. He's showing you something that he has for you.
Why? We all ask why we should work this hard. Why take that many classes? Why go to school that many years? You know, why take the notes? Why read the books? Why work that hard? Why put yourself through the push-ups and the disciplines? Why? Good question, why? Best answer to why, I think, is the second question. Why not? Why not see how many books you can read, how many classes you can take, how many skills you can develop? Why not see how valuable you can become to the marketplace, to your friends, and to your family? Why not see what you can make of yourself? Why not see how far you can go, how much you can see, how much you can earn, how much you can share? Why not? That's the heritage all of us have, in America especially, is to see what we can make out of our lives now that we've been given this extraordinary opportunity.
We're having a fight, and I find out that it's, because you were abused by your uncle when you were 5 or some goddamn thing. It's like, it's very frequent that sort of thing happens. There's your partner's, manifesting some weird anomalous behavior. You just can't make heads or tails of it. It doesn't seem related to what you're doing at all. They don't want to talk about it. And so as soon as you bring it up, they get mad. And then you bring it up again, they even get madder, and they tell you that you're not going to talk about that or they're going to leave. And so maybe you're really, really persistent because you're kind of a son of a bitch, and then they break down and cry, and then they have this horrible memory that comes flooding forward that's completely, you don't know what to do with it, and then you have to sort it out. It's like, you think you're going to do that unless there's a good reason? You have to know, we better sort this out, or we're going to be carrying it around for the next 40 years. That maybe is enough motivation so you'll actually try hard to solve a problem. It's a lot easier to say, well, sorry, we're not going there. But then, good, you'll have it every day, every goddamn day for the rest of your life. Most children now have older parents
right? Because people aren't having children until they're in their 30s. And there's a big difference between having a parent who's in his or her 30s and having a parent who's in his or her 20s.
Yep.
The 20-year-olds are still kind of like kids, and they're going to be more usefully neglectful, I would say. One of the things we used to do with my daughter when she was very little was, when she was about a year and a half, is we'd have her in a room alone, and she would usually complain about that for a few minutes, and then she'd find a way to amuse herself. She liked to take books out of shelves and put them back in, and like if you let her get through that initial bit of misery, then she would learn how to regulate herself, and she got very good at that. And so that's a good example of minor privation having a positive influence.
And that was the motivational shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
I don't think we talk enough about the Holy Spirit, even though, of course, we mention and we honor and we worship the Holy Spirit, that we don't speak sufficiently of this third person of the Trinity. And there might be some truth to that. See, when you get in touch with the Holy Spirit, you're getting in touch with the love that connects the Father and the Son. You're getting in touch with the love that God is, and therefore with the very force that gave rise to the universe. So at the risk of sounding a little bit cosmic and grandiose, you're in touch with the most powerful force imaginable. You want power. I mean the real thing. Surrender your life over to the Holy Spirit. Say, Lord, look, it's not what I want. It's not my projects and plans. It's your projects and plans. You will find you will tap into this source of power to change things for good, change things for the better in your life, in your family, in your place of work. Surrender by a conscious act to the Spirit, and you unleash this great driving wind. Everything in this world finally.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, pragmatism is the philosophy which holds that there is no objective reality or permanent truth, that there are no absolute principles, no valid abstractions, no firm concepts, that anything may be tried by rule of thumb, that objectivity consists of collective subjectivism, that whatever people wish to be true is true. Whatever people wish to exist does exist, provided a consensus says so. If you want to avert the final disaster, it is this type of thinking that you must face, grasp, and reject. Unquote. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, The Daily Laws by Robert Greene, January 8th. Occupy your own niche.
January 8th. Occupy your own niche. As a child growing up in Madras, India, in the late 1950s, V.S. Ramachandran knew he was different. In his loneliness, he would often wander along the beach, and soon he became fascinated by the incredible variety of seashells that washed up on shore. He began to collect them and study the subject in detail. Soon he was drawn to the strangest varieties of seashells, such as the xenophora, an organism that collects discarded shells and uses them for camouflage. In a way, he was like the xenophora, an anomaly. In nature, these anomalies often serve a larger evolutionary purpose. They can lead to the occupation of new ecological niches, offering a greater chance of survival. Over the years, he transferred this boyhood interest into other subjects: human anatomical abnormalities, peculiar phenomena in chemistry, and so on. He went to medical school, then became a professor in visual psychology at the University of California at San Diego. He became intrigued by the phenomenon of phantom limbs, people who have had an arm or leg amputated and yet still feel a paralyzing pain in the missing limb. He proceeded to conduct experiments on phantom limb subjects. These experiments led to some exciting discoveries about the brain itself, as well as a novel way to relieve such patients of their pain. Studying anomalous neurological disorders would be the subject to which he would devote the rest of his life. It was as if he had come full circle to the days of collecting the rarest forms of seashells. Daily law. Embrace your strangeness. Identify what makes you different. Fuse those things together and become an anomaly. Mastery, Chapter 1. Discover your calling, the life's task.
And that was January 8th, Occupy Your Own Niche, from the Daily Laws by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now we pick up where we left off on the 33 strategies of war.
Between battles, Napoleon would sometimes wander among the soldiers' campfires, mingling with them. He himself had risen through the ranks. He had once been an ordinary gunner, and he could talk to the men as no other general could. He knew their names, their histories, even in what battles they'd been wounded. With some men, he would pinch an earlobe between his finger and thumb and give it a friendly tweak. Napoleon's soldiers did not see him often, but when they did, it was as if an electrical charge passed through them. It was not just his personal presence. He knew exactly when to show up, before a big battle, or when morale had slipped for some reason. At these moments, he would tell them they were making history together. If a squad were about to lead a charge or seemed in trouble, he would ride over and yell, "38th, I know you. Take me that village. At the charge." His soldiers felt they weren't just obeying orders. They were living out a great drama. Napoleon rarely showed anger, but when he did, his men felt worse than just guilty or upset. Late in the First Italian campaign, Austrian troops had forced some of his troops into a humiliating retreat for which there was no excuse. Napoleon visited their camp personally. "Soldiers, I am not satisfied with you," he told them, his large gray eyes seemingly on fire. "You have shown neither bravery, discipline, nor perseverance. You have allowed yourselves to be driven from positions where a handful of men could have stopped an army. Soldiers of the 39th and 85th, you are not French soldiers. General, Chief of Staff, let it be inscribed on their colors, they no longer form part of the army of Italy." The soldiers were astounded. Some cried. Others begged for another chance. They repented their weakness and turned completely around. The 39th and 85th would go on to distinguish themselves for strengths they had never shown previously. Some years later, during a difficult campaign against the Austrians in Bavaria, the French won a hard-fought victory. The next morning, Napoleon reviewed the 13th Regiment of Light Infantry, which had played a key role in the battle, and asked the colonel to name its bravest man. The colonel thought for a moment. "Sir, it is the drum major." Napoleon immediately asked to see the young bandsman, who appeared quaking in his boots. Then Napoleon announced loudly for everyone to hear, "They say that you are the bravest man in this regiment. I appoint you a Knight of the Legion of Honor, Baron of the Empire, and award you a pension of 4,000 francs. The soldiers gasped. Napoleon was famous for his well-timed promotions, and for promoting soldiers on merit, making even the lowliest private feel that if he proved himself, he could someday be a marshal. But a drum major becoming a baron overnight? That was entirely beyond their experience. Word of it spread rapidly through the troops and had an electrifying effect, particularly on the newest conscripts, the ones who were most homesick and depressed. Throughout his long, very bloody campaigns, and even his heart-wrenching defeats, the bitter winter in Russia, the eventual exile to Elba, the final act at Waterloo, Napoleon's men would go to the ends of the earth for le petit caporal and for no one else. Interpretation. Napoleon was the greatest man-manager in history. He took millions of unruly, undisciplined, unsoldierly young men, recently liberated by the French Revolution, and molded them into one of the most successful fighting forces ever known. Their high morale was all the more remarkable for the ordeals he put them through. Napoleon used every trick in the book to build his army. He united them around a cause, spreading first the ideas of the French Revolution, later the glory of France as a growing empire. He treated them well, but never spoiled them. He appealed not to their greed, but to their thirst for glory and recognition. He led from the front, proving his bravery again and again. He kept his men moving. There was always a new campaign for glory. Having bonded with them, he skillfully played on their emotions. More than soldiers fighting in an army, his men felt themselves part of a myth, united under the emperor's legendary eagle standards. Of all Napoleon's techniques, none was more effective than his use of punishments and rewards, all staged for the greatest dramatic impact. His personal rebukes were rare, but when he was angry, when he punished, the effect was devastating. The target felt disowned, outcast. As if exiled from the warmth of his family, he would struggle to win back the general's favor, and then never to give him a reason to be angry again. Promotions, rewards, and public praise were equally rare, and when they came, they were always for merit, never for some political calculation. Caught between the poles of wanting never to displease Napoleon and yearning for his recognition, his men were pulled into his sway, following him devotedly, but never quite catching up. Learn from the master. The way to manage people is to keep them in suspense. First, create a bond between your soldiers and yourself. They respect you, admire you, even fear you a little. To make the bond stronger, hold yourself back. Create a little space around you. You are warm, yet with a touch of distance. Once the bond is forged, appear less often. Make both your punishments and your praises rare and unexpected, whether for mistakes or for successes that may seem minor at the time but have symbolic meaning. Understand, once people know what pleases you and what angers you, they turn into trained poodles, working to charm you with apparent good behavior. Keep them in suspense. Make them think of you constantly and want to please you but never know just how to do it. Once they are in the trap, you will have a magnetic pull over them. Motivation will become automatic. Reversal. If morale is contagious, so is its opposite. Fear and discontent can spread through your troops like wildfire. The only way to deal with them is to cut them off before they turn into panic and rebellion. In 58 BC, when Rome was fighting the Gallic War, Julius Caesar was preparing for battle against the Germanic leader Ariovistus. Rumors about the ferocity and size of the German forces were flying, and his army was panicky and mutinous. Caesar acted fast. First, he had the rumor-mongers arrested. Next, he addressed his soldiers personally, reminding them of their brave ancestors who had fought and defeated the Germans. He would not lead their weaker descendants into battle. Since the 10th Legion alone seemed immune to the growing panic, he would take them alone. As Caesar prepared to march with the valiant 10th Legion, the rest of the army, ashamed, begged him to forgive them and let them fight. With a show of reluctance, he did so, and these once frightened men fought fiercely. In such cases, you must act like Caesar, turning back the tide of panic. Waste no time and deal with the whole group. People who spread panic or mutiny experience a kind of madness in which they gradually lose contact with reality. Appeal to their pride and dignity. Make them feel ashamed of their moment of weakness and madness. Remind them of what they have accomplished in the past and show them how they are falling short of the ideal. This social shaming will wake them up and reverse the dynamic.
And that was the next part of Chapter 7, Transform Your War into a Crusade from the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a Medal of Honor recipient is laid to rest.
Gather here this afternoon at Arlington National Cemetery, a sacred place. A place that for over 150 years has honored her fallen warriors and patriots. These hallowed grounds are a lasting memorial to men and women who have faithfully served our nation. It is the final resting place for over 500,000 people. A place that can only be earned and cannot be bought. As you look upon the rows of headstones, each stone is a brick in the foundation of freedom upon which we stand. welcome home. You stand relieved. We have the watch.
Squad, Hunter, flank mission, low. Ready, and fire. Ready, and fire. Ready, and fire. Ready.
And that was the laying to rest in Arlington National Cemetery of a World War II sailor. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States. Today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you to be honest, smart, and beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.